Alright guys, welcome back to part 4. So, previously we left off with our spaceship able to shoot these asteroids that are floating around, all well and good. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at making these asteroids split up into smaller asteroids as they would in the original Asteroids game. We're going to do that by creating a new asteroid object that's going to be what's called a child object of our current asteroid object, meaning it's going to mostly inherit all of the code and movement and stuff that we've already written for our normal asteroid, so we don't have to write it again, make them behave in the same way. And then once we've made that object, we're going to make it spawn a couple of them whenever we blow up one of the bigger asteroids, okay? So it's going to be as simple as that. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new sprite for our new smaller asteroid. So I'm going to go into sprites, insert sprite, and create spr underscore asteroid underscore s. It's going to be like, just so we associate it with our current asteroid object, and just say it's slightly different from our main one by being underscore s to represent small. So it's going to be the small version, right? So I'm going to create a new sprite. This one's going to be 32 by 32 because it's going to be about half the size of our original. And I'm just going to do what we did before. I'm just going to draw a little asteroid shape. I'm going to try and keep it roughly square so we don't have to do too much fancy stuff with the collision boxes, and it just kind of fits. So that should do. That'll do for one, but we'll need to make a couple more frames just so we have a bit of variance. Let's do something like this. Do little dents. I'm not going to do anything too crazy with it though. That'll do. And then one more. We'll keep it at exactly 3 so we can use the same code for like picking a random sprite. There we go. It'll look a little bit square, but you know, no, I think that works out pretty well. Okay, so there's our new asteroid. Send to the origin on that. And go ahead and click OK. That's a new asteroid sprite. So we've got 2 asteroid sprites now. One of them is just half the size of the regular one. So now what we need to do, just as we've done before, we've made the sprite. So let's go ahead and make the object. So in objects, right click, create object, obj underscore asteroid underscore s, just the same way we need our sprite. Set the sprite accordingly to spr underscore asteroid underscore s. And then importantly, what we need to do down here where it says parent, go ahead and click the little drop down list icon and select obj underscore asteroid. Having done that, it means this object is now a child of obj underscore asteroid, and obj underscore asteroid is now a parent to obj underscore asteroid underscore s. What that means is that if we don't do any events or actions of our own in here, this object will just inherit all of the code from the original asteroid object. We can overwrite some of that code by establishing our own events, but for every event that's defined in obj underscore asteroid, if obj underscore asteroid underscore s doesn't have that event itself, it will inherit it from this object. And you can even make it inherit the actions from it and still have events and do your own things, but we'll get into that another time. So if I just go into the room now, and if I just plonk a couple of these smaller asteroids around, just for example's sake, and run the game real quick, you can see that they behave in exactly the same way as our larger asteroids do. Okay, even though we've written no code for them, we've just set them to be a child object of our original asteroid, and they behave exactly in the same way. They collide with the bullets in exactly the same way, and just do everything the same way as our asteroids do. Whenever we write code that affects like the object globally, obj underscore asteroid, that will also affect its child objects, so it will affect obj underscore asteroid underscore s. Now the next thing we need to do, and I'm just going to delete these from around here, it's getting a bit crowded in this room, is make it so the larger asteroids split into the smaller asteroids when we blow them up. So I'm going to go into our original asteroid object with all of this code. I'm going to add a new event. It's going to be the destroy event. So it's just when the object gets destroyed, right? Which is when the bullet collides with it. So in this destroy event, what I'm going to do, and you can do this doing the drag and drop, and I'll show you how to do that first if you want, is in main 1, where it's the little light bulb icon that says create instance. You can drag that in to create an instance of a specific object, and then tick relative, so we can make these x and y coordinates relative to where we are, and 0, 0 means that it'll just create it wherever this object is. And just pick the object obj underscore asteroid underscore s, okay? And then I'm going to, like, if I right click that and copy, paste it, so we do 2 of those. Whenever this object dies, it'll make 2 smaller asteroids. And that works in drag and drop. That's totally fine if you want to do it that way. But because I'm trying to instill code in you guys as well, let's look at how to do that exact same thing, no difference at all, just using a couple of lines of GML code instead. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those and drag in a code action. And in the code editor, all we're going to write is instance underscore create, and you can see that turns yellow because it recognizes it as a function. And because it's a function, we have to open brackets to provide it with any arguments it needs. And you can see at the bottom of here, it needs the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and the object we're going to make. Just the same as the drag and drop option also needed an x and y coordinate and the object that we're trying to create. Now if we want to create this object at a position relative to our current asteroid, just as we did before, instead of ticking a relative box, we just assign it to be x and y, and those turn red because they're built-in variables of this object. So we're going to create this object at wherever our current asteroid is. And obviously the object we want to make is obj underscore asteroid underscore s. You'll see it turns red because it knows what it is. Close the bracket, semicolon, and then all we need to do is copy and paste that line. And then we have 2 asteroids being made, just exactly the same. It does exactly the same thing as the way we set it up with the drag and drop. A little more flexibility in how we work the coordinates, but more or less exactly the same thing. I'll go ahead and click OK, save changes with that, and click OK. The only problem is now, is because obj underscore asteroid underscore s, saying that every time, I'm just going to call them the smaller asteroids. Whenever the smaller asteroids, because they inherit all of their code from the bigger asteroid, when the bigger asteroid gets destroyed, it spawns 2 of these smaller asteroids, meaning when the smaller asteroid gets destroyed, it will also spawn another 2 of the smaller asteroid, which we don't want. When the smaller asteroid gets destroyed, we just want it to get destroyed, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add an event for destroy, and by just creating this event, any actions we put in here overwrite the parent actions, okay? If we wanted to write some actions of our own here and still inherit the code from the bigger asteroids, we can go into control and drag in call event, and it calls the inherited event. So we can do that, and then we would be able to like add our own like actions on top of that as well, so it would inherit all its code but then do other stuff as well, which can be really, really useful. But we don't want to call that inherited event. We don't want to make new stuff. All we want to do is do nothing, really. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag in a code action and just write a comment. I'm going to write it with 3 slashes instead of 2, and just write nothing. Okay. The reason I write it with 3 slashes is because if you start a comment with 3 slashes at the beginning of a piece of code, then when you save that piece of code, that comment also becomes the title of the action. So instead of saying execute a piece of code, it says whatever you put after the 3 brackets, which I just wrote nothing, right? And this code, it's just a comment, doesn't do anything at all. That's the point. You can write anything in here you want, but I just wrote nothing so it was clear. The reason I bother putting that action in at all is because if you don't put any actions in, GameMaker will just discard the event and it'll go away. So you need something in there to tell it to run this event. But we're just going to do absolutely nothing in this, just so that it doesn't inherit the code from the larger asteroid object. Now if we run the game, we should see, hopefully, that those larger asteroids, when killed, yep, spawn 2 smaller asteroids that then fly off in their own direction, pick a random sprite and like move around just as our larger asteroids do. But then when the smaller asteroids get destroyed, they stay destroyed. They don't spawn more and more new things. Okay. So that's that. That's how you make that happen. That's how parenting works. And next episode, I think we're going to probably look at doing. I know we said we'd do some dynamic spawning stuff, but before we get to that, I think it would be useful for us to cover generating scores and tracking them, displaying them on the screen, just to cover as many sort of varied topics as possible while going through this game. Hope you're all enjoying this so far. Any comments or suggestions, leave them in the comments below as usual, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. See you guys.